not the doctor, not the department head, not the administrator who had flown in from Toronto that morning with a leather portfolio and a look that said she had already made up her mind. It was the woman pushing the linen cart down the hall who stopped first. Hazel Drummond had worked the overnight shift at Mercy General in Sudbury for 11 years. She knew which floor tiles squeaked near the nursing station. She knew which vending machine on level 3 would take your loonie and give you nothing back. She knew the sound the cardiac monitor made when a reading was off by just enough to mean something, and she knew the sound it made when the number on the chart didn't match the number on the screen. She had learned to tell the difference a long time ago, back when she still believed someone would listen if she said so. That Tuesday in February, the hospital board was meeting in the 4th floor conference room. Hazel knew because she had restocked the towels in the washroom adjacent to it at 7:15, and she could hear through the wall the particular kind of silence that fills a room when everyone present has already agreed on something they haven't said out loud yet. The agenda, as she had seen it posted on the administrative board near the elevator lobby, listed one item at the bottom: proposed restructuring of the cardiac care unit, Phase 1. Everyone in the building knew what that meant. The CCU had been running at a deficit for 2 years. The new administrator, Sandra Voss, brought in from a health authority consulting firm in Ottawa, had circulated a report in January recommending a 40% reduction in overnight nursing staff and the reclassification of 6 beds as non-acute. The report was 42 pages. The summary on page 1 said everything the board needed to read. Most of them had not gone further. Hazel had found a copy in the recycling bin outside the staff lounge. She had read all 42 pages on her breaks over the course of a week, eating her sandwich in the stairwell where no one would ask her what she was doing. She wasn't supposed to have an opinion about it. She was the night linen attendant. Her job was to move carts, replenish supplies, and stay out of the way of people with lanyards and titles. She had been told this, not in those words, but in the way people in halls looked through her rather than at her. In the way that when she had once mentioned to the floor charge nurse that a patient in room 412 seemed to be breathing differently than his chart suggested, the nurse had looked at her the way you look at someone who has just tried to explain something outside their lane and then turned back to her computer. Room 412 had coded 40 minutes later. The nurse had not mentioned Hazel's observation to anyone. Hazel had not forgotten that either. She was 51 years old, a single mother. Her daughter, Keza, was 19 and in her first year of nursing school at Laurentian. Every time Hazel drove her to campus, Kezia would talk the whole way about clinical rotations and pharmacology and the things she was learning, and Hazel would listen and not say what she was thinking, which was, "I already know most of this. I learned it standing in hallways for 11 years. The night the board met, Hazel was making her second round of the CCU corridor when she noticed the door to room 6 was ajar. Inside, the patient, a 63-year-old man named Arthur Penhaligon, admitted 4 days earlier following an episode of unstable angina, was asleep. His monitor showed a heart rate of 68 and an oxygen saturation of 97. His chart, hanging in its sleeve by the door, listed his overnight vitals as stable. Hazel paused. She wasn't supposed to look at charts. Technically, she wasn't supposed to be doing anything except pushing the cart and going where the cart needed to go. But she had spent 11 years in these corridors, and something about the sound from the room, not the monitor, something quieter, the rhythm of the breathing, made her stop. She looked at the chart. She looked at the monitor. She looked at the chart again. The potassium reading from the 8 p.m. blood draw was listed as 3.9, normal range. But the physician's notation from earlier that afternoon had flagged a trend, 3 successive draws over 24 hours showing a gradual decline. The notation recommended repeat testing at midnight. It was 12:43. There was no record of a midnight draw. Hazel stood in the doorway for a long moment. She thought about room 412. She thought about the nurse who had looked through her. She thought about Kezia, who would be up early tomorrow for a 7 a.m. lab, who texted goodnight every evening at 10 and sometimes added a small drawing of a stethoscope or a heart. She thought about the 42-page report upstairs and the part on page 31 that she had read 3 times, the part where Sandra Voss had written, in language that was careful and professional and managed to be completely clear. In restructured overnight staffing models, the incidence of delayed response to non-critical trend indicators is statistically minimal and falls within acceptable deviation thresholds. Acceptable deviation. Hazel knew what that meant, too. She wheeled her cart to the nursing station. The overnight nurse, a young man named Patrick she had worked alongside for 2 years, was writing up a handoff note at the desk. He was tired. She could see it in the way he was holding his pen. "The midnight draw on Penhaligon in 6, she said. "I don't think it was done." Patrick looked up. He had the expression of someone trying to remember if he had asked for a second opinion. "The aide was supposed to." "I don't think it was done," Hazel said again. "Not aggressive, not uncertain. Just the fact, set down plainly, the way you set something heavy on a counter." Patrick pushed back from the desk and went to check. He came back 2 minutes later with a different look on his face. "No record of it," he said. "I'll get it ordered now." He did. The draw came back at 118, potassium 2.9. Patrick was on the phone to the attending before the printer finished. Penhaligon was started on IV replacement therapy within the hour. Low potassium in a cardiac patient, especially one already presenting with arrhythmia risk factors, was the kind of thing that could become a very different kind of morning very quickly. The attending, a Dr. Oluwafemi Adeyemi, who had been doing this for 22 years, said afterward that catching it when they did had mattered. Hazel was back on her route by 2 a.m. She restocked the supply closet on level 2. She replaced the pillow covers in the overflow hallway. She took the service elevator back to the basement to reload her cart. She did not know that upstairs, in the 4th-floor conference room, Sandra Voss was still working through the final revision of the restructuring proposal with 2 members of the board. She did not know that Dr. Adeyemi, arriving for his 6 a.m. rounds and asking how Penhaligon had been overnight, had been told what happened. She did not know that he had stood at the nursing station for a moment after hearing it and asked, "Who flagged the missed draw?" Patrick had told him. And she did not know that Dr. Adeyemi had then taken the elevator to the 4th floor. Sandra Voss had been in healthcare administration for 16 years. She had restructured 4 facilities. She had a way of speaking in meetings that made everything sound like math. Clean, inevitable, without emotion. She was not a cruel person. She simply believed in models, and models required you to assign weight to things. And when you assigned weight to a linen attendant's contribution to patient outcomes, the number was very small. She had not met Hazel Drummond. When Dr. Adeyemi knocked on the conference room door at 6:15, she looked up with the expression of someone who had not expected an interruption and did not particularly welcome one. "I need 5 minutes," he said. She gave him 3 at first, and then she gave him more. He was not theatrical about it. He did not raise his voice. He sat down across from her and he said, "The proposal reduces overnight capacity in the CCCU by 40%. Your model projects, this is manageable because trend indicators are typically caught at morning handoff. I want to show you one case from last night." He put the chart on the table. He walked her through the potassium readings. He explained what an uncorrected value of 2.9 in a post-angina patient could produce by 5 a.m. He used the word ventricular and watched her expression change. "Who was the attending overnight?" she asked. "No attending flagged it," he said. A linen attendant noticed the draw hadn't been done and mentioned it to the nurse on duty. Sandra Voss was quiet for a moment. She looked at the chart. She looked at the board member sitting to her left, who had said nothing. "How long has she worked here?" she asked. 11 years, overnight shifts. She would be in the first cohort affected by the reduction proposal. Her hours fall in the restructured window. Another silence. Sandra Voss was not someone who changed her mind easily. She had not built her career on changing her mind. But she had also not built it on ignoring a data point when it was sitting directly in front of her, labeled and sourced and attached to a real outcome. She had always told herself that was the difference between her and people who just wanted to protect what existed for its own sake. She looked at the chart for a long time. "I'd like to meet her," she said. Hazel finished her shift at 7. She changed in the locker room, tied her shoes, put her bag over her shoulder. She was thinking about stopping for gas on the way home and whether she had enough in the freezer to make something before she slept, and whether Kezia's clinical rotation started today or tomorrow. There was a woman she didn't recognize standing near the exit by the staff parking lot. Dark coat, portfolio under her arm. She looked like someone waiting for something. "Hazel Drummond?" she said. Hazel stopped. "Yeah, I'm Sandra Voss. I know who you are," Hazel said. She said it evenly, without heat. Sandra Voss nodded, as though she had expected that. "Doctor." "Adeyemi told me what happened last night with your patient." "He's not my patient," Hazel said. "I'm not clinical staff." "No," Sandra Voss said. "But you caught something clinical staff missed." Hazel didn't say anything to that. There wasn't anything that needed saying. "I've been working on a proposal for this facility," Sandra Voss said. "A restructuring of overnight staffing in the CCU. It goes to final vote with the board on Friday." "I know," Hazel said. "I read it." Something shifted in Sandra Voss's face. Not defensiveness, more like recalibration. "You read the full report, all 42 pages. I found a copy in recycling." Another pause, a longer one. "There's a line on page 31, Hazel said. She wasn't going to let herself be angry. She had decided that a long time ago that anger in conversations like this cost more than it recovered. About acceptable deviation in delayed response times. The model works if you assume the trends get caught at handoff. Last night they wouldn't have. "I understand that now," Sandra Voss said. "Does it change anything?" Sandra Voss looked at her. Direct. The way someone looks at you when they're deciding whether to be honest. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I would like it to." Hazel adjusted her bag on her shoulder. "My daughter's in first-year nursing at Laurentian," she said. "She wants to work in cardiac care. I'd like there to be overnight staff left when she graduates." She said it simply, not as an argument, not as leverage. Just a fact she was setting down on the counter, the same way she had set down the fact about the midnight draw. Sandra Voss held the portfolio a little tighter. "Could I ask you something?" "You can ask. How did you know to look at the chart?" "That's outside you're not supposed to." "I know what I'm supposed to do," Hazel said. "I've been doing it for 11 years. Sometimes the job tells you when to do more than that." She nodded once, the kind of nod that closes a conversation without closing a door, and walked to her car. The board met on Friday at 9 a.m. Hazel was at home, asleep, because she had worked Thursday overnight and didn't know anything was happening until Kezia called her, just after noon. "Mom, are you awake?" Hazel was not fully awake. "What time is it?" "It's 12:30. "Mom, someone sent me something." A pause, the rustling sound of Kezia holding the phone differently. "There's a thing going around the hospital group. Chat, someone at Mercy General. They said the restructuring vote." Kezia. Hazel sat up. "Just tell me." "They tabled it," Kezia said. "The CCU restructuring. They pulled it from the vote. They're commissioning a new study. And Mom, they listed a reason in the official statement. It says operational intelligence gaps identified in overnight monitoring capacity." Another pause. "My professor says that's admin language, for we realized the model was wrong." Hazel sat on the edge of her bed in the thin winter light that came through her curtains. She could hear the furnace running. Outside, a city truck was moving along the street. She did not feel like she had won something. That wasn't quite the right word for it. She felt like she had been seen, for the first time in 11 years of pushing a cart through corridors where people looked through her. Something she had noticed had mattered in a room she was never supposed to enter. "Mom, are you there?" "I'm here," she said. "I'm proud of you," Kezia said. I wanted to say that." Hazel, she stared at the ceiling. "Go study," she said. "You've got pharmacology. I know. I love you. I love you too." She didn't go back to sleep right away. She lay there and thought about Arthur Penhaligon in room 6, who probably didn't know her name and never would. She thought about the sound of his breathing and the number on the chart that hadn't matched the number on the screen. She thought about 11 years of knowing things that no one had asked her to know, carrying that knowledge the way she carried everything, quietly, down corridors, from room to room, until the night it turned out to matter. She thought about a line in Sandra Voss's report, not from page 31 but from page 8, buried in a paragraph about staffing categories. Ancillary personnel are a consistent and essential presence across all overnight hours. Consistent, essential, present. Voss had written those words. She had just never quite thought through what they meant until now. 3 weeks later, Sandra Voss sent a request through hospital administration asking if Hazel would be willing to participate in a working group reviewing overnight monitoring protocols for the CCU. The email had been routed through HR and addressed formally to H. Drummond Environmental and Linen Services. Hazel read it on her phone in the staff locker room before her shift. She typed back one line, "I'm available on my days off. Send me the reading materials in advance." She put her phone in her locker, tied her hair back, and went to get her cart. The corridors were quiet at that hour. The CCU was down at the end of the west wing, past the elevator bank and the water fountain that had been making a noise for 3 months that no one had gotten around to fixing. Hazel knew the route the way she knew most things about this building. Not from a manual, not from a training session, but from the thousands of nights she had moved through it while everyone else was looking somewhere else. She pushed the cart through the double doors and started her round. In room 6, the monitors beeped their steady, measured rhythm. Arthur Penhaligon had been discharged 10 days earlier. A new patient was there now. Hazel didn't know his name yet, but she would learn it. She always did. She checked the hallway supply cabinet. She noted the count. She moved on. Some people in this world carry their knowledge quietly for years, doing the work that no one sees, holding things together in the dark. They don't ask to be noticed. They only ask, when it counts, to be heard. That Tuesday night, in a hospital corridor in Sudbury, one woman was. And a man went home to his family. And a 19-year-old in a nursing program slept a little easier knowing the kind of place her mother had helped to make. That's not nothing. In the long run, that might be everything.